Greene King IPA.
Life is too short to be drinking shitty beer.
Welcome to another edition of Bands, Bikes and Booze Reviews. The fridge is running bare at the moment, I tell you. I have really sunk to rock bottom. I'm digging out the dregs. But I've got this stuff, Greene King IPA. Now, surely everyone has heard of this. This is Greene King's flagship beer. It's an old, dependable. It's one of the ones where if you walk into a pub, certainly a Witherspoons or a Greene King pub, and there's nothing that you fancy, this is usually the old dependable. It's reasonably drinkable on draft. It's not great. I wouldn't say it's outstanding, but it does the job. And I've got a couple of mates that are quite partial to it. They always drink it when they go into a pub, and the reason they do is because just for that reason, low ABV, easy drinking, and it sort of hits the spot, which is fair enough. I have to say, I'm not a massive fan of Greene King beers. There's just something about them. It's the yeast, I think, that does it for me. But having said that, I just tried their East Coast IPA. Now, if they'd have called it something else, it was a reasonably decent drink. But there's caveats to that. The reason it was decent is because it came in a box and I kept it in the dark as much as possible so it wouldn't go skunky. Same goes for this one. This was in a box and I've tried to keep it dark. I'm some OCD with this, but I've got my hands over it now, just trying to keep the light off of it, because if there's one thing I can't stand, it's skunky beer. And Greene King, I think, I could be wrong on this, but I'm pretty sure all their beers are put in clear bottles, and I do not fucking know why. There is absolutely no need for that whatsoever, but they insist on doing it, which I think has probably done nothing for their reputation, because I've opened up so many bottles of Greene King beer, certainly the Speckled Hen beers, and they've just tasted and smelt disgusting because they've reacted with the light, and it doesn't help. You know, if they put them in boxes, then fair enough, it'll work to an extent. They're not going to be sat on a supermarket shelf underneath the light. And of course, you've got the shop round the corner, that I call Skunk Central. And I don't know what it is, don't know where they must get it from a cash and carry, where they're on the shelf right and under the light. And then they bring it to the supermarket or the shop round the corner and they just put it under the light. And it's just a recipe for disaster. And if you look at the opening credits on the video, or the opening sequence on the video, and you see me pulling faces, that's me drinking a skunked bottle of Peroni. Oh, that was absolutely disgusting. That went down the sink, as you can imagine. Anyway, enough about that. I've got some of this. A little bit about Greene King first. They've been going quite a while now. They've been going since 1799, which, you know, a long time ago. I don't remember it, even though I'm an old fucker. But yeah, they've been going since then. Based up in Bury St Edmunds in Suffolk. If you're wondering where Bury St Edmunds, the name came from, the real patron saint of England is not St George, it's St Edmund. And then that was changed. I should have looked this up, but it was changed at some point. But the real patron saint was St Edmund. That was around, I think, Saxon times, or just after Saxon times. Could be wrong on that, possibly a little bit later. But he's buried there, basically. His body is buried there, and that's why it's called Bury St Edmunds. And it's in Suffolk, which is on the eastern side of the United Kingdom. Been there a few times. Nice little town, not too bad. And they're all Ipswich Town fans up there. I think I've played in a pub in Bury St Edmunds. I'm sure I have. Was it Ipswich? Could be Ipswich. I can't remember. It's all round here anyway. But that was founded in 1799 by a fellow called Benjamin Greene, and his mate Frederick King, hence the name Greene King, and they've been going since then. Now, Greene King pubs, not a massive fan, to be honest. Been in a couple. Certainly there's a couple round here. It's either these or Shepherd Neame, and I tend to go into Shepherd Neame pubs. Beer is slightly better. Don't get me wrong, Greene King is always on draft there, but the other beers they have on draft, certainly on cask anyway, really just don't cut the mustard with me. There's a little story, you've probably heard this story if you've watched any of the Harvey's reviews that I do. They had a pub, Greene King had a pub, because they have got quite a lot of pubs. They had a pub not too far away from the Harvey's brewery, and the Harvey stuff was outselling the Greene King stuff. And the local rep from Greene King came down and says, right, you're not selling any Harvey's beer. All the locals boycotted the pub, stood outside with placards lambasting Greene King, saying they're shit beer, they're stopping us from having decent beer, etc, etc. That lasted, I think, 90 days. Greene King relented because the pub was doing no business. Even the owner of the pub came out, or the landlord came out in support. And of course they let Harvey's sell their beer, and it was outselling Greene King by about 4 to 1. For every pint of Greene King there was 4 pints of Harvey's being sold. Because Harvey's is nice on draft. It's a little bit hit and miss on the bottle, but on draft it's reasonably good. So let's stop talking about the brewery. Let's get this beer investigated. Okie dokie, 3.6% ABV, 500ml bottle, clear bottle, I should add. 3 British hops in there: Admiral, Challenger and First Gold. Admiral, that's the bitter in hop. You do get some other nice aromas from it and flavours as well. A lot of people say you get a tea type, like black tea type flavour to it, and I have tasted that in some beers that have got Admiral in there, and quite pleasant. I love tea, can't beat tea.
The entire British Empire was built on cups of tea, and if you think I'm going to war without one, mate, you're mistaken.
But it's also got citrus in there as well, and of course the other two, the Challenger and the First Gold. The Challenger and the First Gold, of course, are renowned for their spice. The malts that are in here are quite interesting. You've got pale malt and you've got crystal malt. We've also got a little tiny amount of black malt in there as well to give it some bitterness on it as well, which is quite interesting. Now, I've had this on draft a few times. Never had it out the bottle, believe it or not. Wherever I've been, there's always been better beer to buy than Greene King IPA out of a bottle. And of course, the clear bottle just turns me off completely. So, this is going to be a first for me. So, let's get it open. Let's see what's going on. There is the cap. Little caveat before I pour this out. This has been in the fridge, but every time I've opened the fridge, this has been under the light. There's no other way I can do it. It's just the way the fridge is set up, and this has been sort of under the fridge light. So it doesn't smell too skunky, so I think I've managed to avoid that, which is good. Let's see what we got in the glass. God, I really have to struggle to get any aroma out of this at all. There's some faint malt. There's that Greene King yeasty smell that I get out of all of them. Now, I did say this about their East Coast IPA, but the aromas were quite forthcoming in that. Not so in this one. God, you've really got to struggle to get anything out of the aroma on this at all. Here's a little tip for when you're sniffing beer out of a glass. Don't get it on your fucking nose. I always do that. Fucking twat. No, there's a little touch of caramel malt. There's that Greene King yeast and not a lot else. Of course, it's not bottle conditioned, and it's filtered. So it's clear as a bell. You get that down there. There it is in the glass. A little bit darker than their East Coast, like a very dark copper colour. Let's get it down the hatch. Bottoms up. First thing that hits me, Greene King yeast. Cross between honey and vanilla. Very sweet. There's a bit of biscuit malt on the finish. Like a rich tea biscuit. And that's all I'm getting from the first mouthful. Now, if you're a fan of that Greene King yeast, your quid's in with this, because it's quite big. But if you're not a fan, then I'd avoid this if I were you. Biscuit malt finish, honey, and I sort of get that as vanilla, could be wrong. Some very light herbal notes on it, not much spice, considering they've got them first Golden Challenger hops in there. Really not getting that at all. Actually, that's a lie. It is there. Just before the finish on the biscuit malt, it is there, but it's quite brief. The finish is big biscuit. So the order you're getting it in, big sweet honey and vanilla, possibly some of the crystal malt that's making it a little bit caramel maltish. Then you're getting a brief glimpse of the spice from the first Golden Challenger, and then it's all biscuit malt on the finish. Not bad. Drinkable, sessionable certainly, dependable if there's nothing else, and it's very much like the draft in my opinion. It's got all them characteristics, a little bit more fizzy as you would expect, but this is pretty much what Greene King tastes like on draft as well. Is it my favourite one? Oh, hang on, what have I got here? Carefully selected pale, crystal and black malts, yeah, which I said, joined with English hops, including Pilgrim and First Gold. Well, if you look on the website, they say there's Challenger in there. The two are similar, they've got spicy notes on them, but, well, who do you believe? Do you believe the website or do you believe the bottle? Don't know, don't really care. The end result is pretty similar. You're getting a brief spice on here, but this is all about their yeast. Some of the crystal malt giving it like a caramel, sweet caramel type flavour, but the finish is all biscuit malt. It's just okay. It'll do the job. Relatively drinkable, low ABV, easily sessionable. Some people might call it boring. I call that a dependable beer. You know, if you walk into a pub and there is a pile of shit, you got John Smith's, you know, Tetley's, that fucking abomination, and they've got some of this, then I'd always go for the Greene King IPA. But it would never be my first choice, either out of a bottle or on cask. And I've done that in Wetherspoons before, where they've had stuff on, you know, Greene King has been on draft, and I've gone for bottles of Krombacher, just because I think, you know, certain times Krombacher is a very nice German Pilsner, which in the warm weather, certainly, I prefer that to Greene King. But it's not bad. Not bad. Sounds like I'm bashing. It'll do. So what's the verdict on Greene King IPA? Well, I've tried it before in pubs when there's been nothing else, and it's okay. Doesn't really pull up any trees, but it doesn't really offend me. There's nothing bad in there. Reasonable flavours, nothing outstanding. This is their flagship beer as well. This is brewed on a big scale. Every Greene King pub does this, and Greene King own a lot of pubs. Certainly around the southeast, they own a hell of a lot of pubs, and it's in every pub. You also get it in the Wetherspoons as well, so you can imagine how much of this stuff they're brewing. It's on the way to being macro brewed. Well, it is, if you want to argue volumes and stuff. It's certainly not small batch brewed. It's okay. I'm going to give it 6 out of 10, and the reason I'm going to give it 6 out of 10, I'm going to knock a few marks off for the clear bottle. There is no need for that. There's a mark coming off for the misleading information. If you're going to put on your website what's in the beer, ingredients wise, and you're going to put on the bottle there's something different, then, you know, come on, for fuck's sake. And it's just a dependable average beer. Now, I gave the East Coast 7 out of 10. That had quite a lot of flavour to it, and it was quite a good balance of American hops and British character, which made it a very drinkable, arguably an English pale ale. And they did say that, it gave it the drinkability. To me, it just tasted like a golden ale or a pale ale, an English golden ale or pale ale. This, it's just, they call it an IPA. It hasn't got the characteristics, it hasn't got the high ABV, it hasn't got the hoppiness of an English IPA, but it's not bad. It's not a bad attempt, I will say that. So yeah, just dependable. So I'm going to give it 6.5. I'll give it 6.5. I'll recommend it if there's nothing else. If it's a choice between this, John Smith's, Tetley's, that type of stuff, always go for this stuff. Shipyard, you know, that you get in the Wetherspoons, if that's the best they can do as far as IPAs goes. Usually it's not, but I'd go for this all the time. But yeah, not bad. 6.5 out of 10. Recommended with caution. And remember, beer is working class champagne.